if your readers say there's a problem, they're right that there's a problem, but they're probably not right about how to fix it.
Yeah.
So usually I'll try to engage with readers in my comments if they have a problem. And usually it's because what I meant to say didn't get conveyed well. And like in my head, it made sense. The words I put down on paper didn't make sense. So I'll try to talk to them, figure out what the problem is, and fix it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, there's readers who just don't like what you did, and that's okay. As long as what I meant to get down there was there and they didn't like it, that's fine. Not everyone's going to like all your decisions.
This is the CritRPG podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi everyone, and welcome to the CritRPG podcast, the only podcast that invites people who lie about writing memoirs of people who don't exist. With me today is Peter Lee, author of Dear Spellbook. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good too. Yeah. What did we talk about in the bonus material so far? We talked about your kids.
A lot about
Lord
my
of the
kids.
Rings.
Lord of the Rings. My treadmill, my broken toe, and then my sprained knee. And then how neither of us exercise anymore.
Yes. And get very around.
Yes. That's some exciting bonus material.
Oh, yeah.
And then the potential new
stuff in
kazoo ad that you were going to do.
Dragon
Oh,
Con?
speaking of children. Oh, is he in the frame? Well, that's my son.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know if he's in the camera.
Nope, he's not.
Okay. Well, then you don't have to blur his face out. That's good. Good
doesn't
time.
matter. It's fine. Peter.
Max.
You wrote Dear Spellbook.
I did. And it was a fake memoir. And I did get some comments because the foreword is like the main character saying that he's like probably dead. And some people didn't get that that was like fictional, which...
Oh, no.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
I don't know how they thought that I was dead and I was posting this live serial, but I did get a couple concerned comments, but then they like went back and commented later like, oh, I'm dumb. I figured it out.
Oh, no. Tell us more about the untimely demise of your probably dead protagonist.
Self, yes.
How did you write this book? Why did you write this book?
I wanted to write something since like before I liked reading, I think I wanted to write a book because I didn't like reading till like 5th grade, which we talked about before. But I remember writing some pretty bad Pokemon fan fiction on like Windows 96 or something. So it was probably like 98 or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But then, I put the fan fiction life behind me when I grew up and went to junior high. And then I always had ideas for books, but didn't want to like write something that wouldn't get seen. And I knew that I wasn't going to get traditionally published. Like, that's just like, that is a hard thing to get into. And I knew that. But then sometime in like 2018, I started like reading web serials because my son did not sleep good at all. So I'd be like awake all night, waiting for him to fall back asleep. And I needed something I could read in like little chunks and like not really get lost in. And web serials kind of have simpler plots where you could, be half alive, not really miss out on a lot. And then around that time, COVID happened, and I was playing D&D, and I had a campaign that ended because people didn't see each other anymore. And it kind of came together when I was reading a web serial that was very popular, but it like wasn't well written, and I liked it at the same time. So I was like kind of confused, like this is kind of not good, but lots of people like it, and I like it. I could probably do this. So I took the D&D setting that I had been like running games in for like 3 or 4 years, and I kind of turned the current campaign setting into a more of like a story. Like I combined 2 characters to make like a main character, made some other people's characters, tweaked them a little bit so they could like be background characters, and then I started writing what they had done so far into a story. And then I had a time loop chapter in there, but a time loop session, but that was only supposed to be like part of the first book, and it ended up being 3 books. So I didn't really know what I was doing.
Oh no. Yeah, that happens. So you wrote the entire thing just because you could?
Yeah, so I started doing it at the end of 2020. I started
Mm.
writing it, and then I had like 25 chapters in, and I kind of just like I don't know why, but I kind of just started blindly posting chapters on Railroad, not really having any thought or strategy into it. Which
Mm-hmm.
apparently I now know there's lots of
Well,
strategy and plans for
yes.
it, and it wasn't doing great. And I was like trying to promo it everywhere I could, which it's not a lot of places, but there's like some places you can post. And then
Mm.
I asked someone if I could post it on their Discord channel, and then they invited me to like one of the author Discord channels. And then I kind of got some advice, and people told me how like Rising Stars works, and
Mm.
I somehow got on. Well, it was called trending at the time, but I got onto trending. I think by cheating because I did a rewrite while I was like number like 20 or something on Rising Stars, and then
Mm.
I like rewrote a bunch of chapters and deleted some, and then I like shot up to like number two. Um, so I'm kind of convinced that I broke the algorithm a little bit. I don't think that works anymore because Kana, the
Is quick
admin,
on those.
he swears that I didn't break the algo and I earned it, but I don't believe him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I got connected to people on Discord and they kind of gave me some advice and kind of kept me going. And then it like did well. And then I rewrote it again a little bit and reposted that once I was kind of going to try to get it published. And then I reposted as a new story, hit Rising Stars legitimately.
Mm.
And then I got picked up by Portal
Mm.
and I now have 3 books out.
Awesome. So, yeah, and you're also writing a new series, which I want to hear about. But first of all, how was working with Portal?
It's really good. I really like working with them.
Mm.
I had originally kind of planned to go with Athon, so I submitted to them first. But then when I didn't hear back for a couple of days, I kind of like panicked and just like submitted it to Portal. And then I was like, I didn't know anyone who had published at Portal, but I knew a lot of people through Athon.
Mm.
And I kind of just, panic submitted and then regretted it. I'm like, oh, if I was going to submit someone else, I should have edited it more. And then like Portal got back to me really quick, and I had like a call with them, and I met with Brooke, and I
Mm.
really liked how they worked and how they do extra editing, like dev editing passes that I knew I really needed in my story because I
Mm.
already kind of rewritten it twice, and I thought I could have used maybe a third
Mm.
pass. So I went with them, and we edited it for I can't remember now. It probably took like 3 months for the first one, and I was very lucky for the audiobook that they got Travis as my narrator
Mm.
because really good. And also, I've sold more audiobooks than ebooks, which I don't think is common. Um,
In
usually, I
LitRPG,
think,
it might be.
yeah, I've talked to some other people, and generally, KU is like the big number. But
Mm.
if you combine my Kindle Unlimited and my ebooks, they're about a little bit less. I think it's like
Mm.
52 to 48%. But
So you said that you already wrote it twice. And as someone who's just now also on his second rewrite, how did that go for you?
Uh, so it wasn't so much, I call it a rewrite, but it was really kind of a restructuring. One thing that uh, it's relevant to the rewriting.
Yeah.
I really don't recommend writing a story that has like 3 separate concurrent timelines happening in like back to back chapters. People don't really like that, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes it hard to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the big things that I did once I was editing with Portal is we tried to make that less confusing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still pretty confusing especially an audiobook, because one of the main things that we did to kind of make it clearer is we labeled all like the chapters, like when things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're listening to an audiobook, especially some people who listen to like times 5 speed, or that's not a real speed that people listen to, but like 1.5 or 2 times speed,
Mm-hmm.
someone yelling the made up fantasy date really quickly, you're just
Yeah.
not gonna pick up on that and remember.
Oh, yeah. I can see that. Which is weird though, because as you said, like your audiobooks are selling like hotcakes. So cool.
Well, maybe
So
not
well done.
hotcakes. I'm
You
not
can
sure.
you cannot escape success. I'm sorry, Peter.
Okay.
it is done.
We were talking about the rewriting. Yeah. So, the first time I rewrote it, I didn't like have any. The book is my book is written about a guy writing about his experience at a time loop in his like magic spell book that
Mm-hmm.
remembers what he writes in it every time
Mm-hmm.
loop. So, as you can imagine, it starts out with really exciting journal entries about a guy just writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
So the first rewrite, I kind of tried to bring some of the action forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was working with the second rewrite, I had a flashback arc, which originally on the web serial was going to be just like book two, which
Mm-hmm.
would not have been popular, I realized. I don't think people would have liked the story just stopping and going back like 3 months for like a whole book. So I took that story and I interlaced it with
Mm-hmm.
the time loop story. So like you
Mm-hmm.
see the main character experiencing the time loop, and then he's trying to kind of figure out why he can remember this time loop when no one else can. So he kind of
Yeah.
starts writing down his events of prior to the time loop because the spell book that he's writing in is magic
Mm-hmm.
and lets him recall everything like perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
which started kind of as like a narrative device just so I could justify why like he can remember everything like dialogue
Mm-hmm.
perfectly, and then it ended up becoming like one of the pillars of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So for the second rewrite, I took all that, I kind of lined the plots up so they have like building action together or climax together.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
cool. That's nice.
that was how the second rewrite went, and then the third rewrite with Portal was more kind of polishing. It wasn't so much a rewrite; it's just like a dev edit where they would read through and be like, "Hey, you're really describing your magic system way too much here," or "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
no one understands what this is. You need to explain this more here."
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to add some more like kind of progression milestone elements because my story's more it's progression fantasy, but it's more on like the traditional fantasy end of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no like levels, but it's heavily inspired by like D&D fifth edition. So like there are like first tier spells and like second tier
Mm-hmm.
spells, but like you don't like get experience or extra like little granular level increases like so a lot of the story was me trying to kind of take like 4 levels of D&D and make it last over like 3 books while still
Mm-hmm.
getting like satisfying developments and progression throughout the series. So that was kind of what Portal helped me work on as well.
Yeah, they're pretty cool about this. Yeah, I always joke about the fact that basically, if you publish with Portal, Brooke co-authors a book with you. But yeah, he's just a very, very good dev editor, I think. Yeah, the way I solved the whole entire like 3 different timelines issue, and they all have the same like highs and lows, just like quick brackets at the beginning of each chapter explaining through tertiary characters in a discussion what happened through the medium of unreliable narration.
Mm.
It's fun, but that wouldn't have worked for you, of course. So, are you happy with it at the end?
That's a difficult question. I think if you ask anyone if they're happy with their book, they're gonna. Well, I know for me, I always see kind of like the things that I could have done better. I think overall, I am happy how it turned out. But if I was going to do it again, I would do it very differently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I would have done it differently because one of the problems with the rewrite was like if I wanted to make the introduction more like action packed, I would have had to like restructure so much of the story because the way it was written originally was very like here's a day, here's a day, here's a day, like every
Mm-hmm.
chapter, and that's really hard to like redo without just straight up rewriting every chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably would have, if I had to start over, not like write one day at a time. I would have probably been like more of a higher level, like, hey, here's what happened the last like 3 days, which I moved into in the second and the third book in the series, and it became more of like a traditionally structured, like first person past narration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
but I am happy with the second and third book. Like when I was editing those, there were times where I was like, you know, this is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one, because a lot of the stuff that was in there was from when I first started. I don't think I'll ever reread that book or re-listen to it. It's just it's very frustrating. Like I'm happy with it, but I only see the things that I like can't change anymore.
Okay. So what's up next for you then?
Right now, I'm writing a magic school progression fantasy story called Primal Wizardry. It is a spin-off of Dear Spellbook. It takes place 100 years after, and it has a lot of connections to the first series because it's the same world. But also, the main character from Dear Spellbook, at the end of the third book, the time loop ends, and there's a lot of plot threads that have been like laid out from the flashback arc and things he just discovers in the time loop. And those I plan to address in future books about the cast of Dear Spellbook. But 100 years later is like after these people have become super important and like impacted like wars and things like that, and like left
Yeah.
his legacy behind and started a magic school in some capacity. And this new series shows a character who has connections to the main character from Dear Spellbook going to this magic school and meeting other people who are loosely connected to characters from Dear Spellbook.
Cool.
So it's kind of a lot, but
I mean,
the
that's pretty
no,
cool.
yeah. So my hope was that this would kind of be something I could write to take a break from writing a time loop
Mhm.
and kind of wrap my head around writing a non-time loop story while still kind of staying in this world
Mhm.
and writing something that was detached. So like if people like Dear Spellbook and they want to keep reading up more about the setting, there was something for them to go to. And people like this, and they could then go to Dear Spellbook. But you're not supposed to need to have read either one to read the other one. And that's my intent. Some Royal Road comments have told me that maybe it's a little hard to follow, but I think that it's kind of I don't know, if traditional fantasy books you sometimes you just get dropped in like the deep
Yeah.
water and there's just like all these made up words and you just kind of figure it out. I don't think it's that
Yeah.
bad, but there is a lot to the magic system that I kind of developed through 3 books that now when I wrote this, it was pretty fully developed and I couldn't like I can't explain it all in the first chapter because it would be very
Mhm.
boring because that was one of the problems with the original first chapter of Dear Spellbook. So kind of gets fed out through the series. I think I do it well enough that people can follow what's going on by the time the magic elements become relevant to the plot, but I am kind of looking into ways I could kind of edit it to be a little more clear because I'm not above editing a serial that's out, as we talked
Oh
about.
yeah. I think that's definitely the way to go. You write the entire thing, and then you take a bit of a break while the rest of the chapters are uploading, and you edit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. Yeah, I have several ideas about that, like several thoughts. Like the first one is like, I mean, Primal Wizardry right now sits at 4.7 stars at 2,000 followers. That's not bad. That's really not bad, right? I think that's a very good rating actually. So
Yeah, I'm happy with how it's doing. I'm still on Rising Stars, but I picked a
oh,
really bad time to post because Actus posted a new story with the
oh
same
yeah,
day as me. Wolfshine posted a new story the day as me.
oh,
Raven's Dagger posted a story like the day after me.
mm-hmm.
So Actus shot up to like number 1 like immediately, and Wolfshine went up to number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just slowly went up there, and I got to like number 8, and just kind of got stuck there, waiting for people to fall down. Because for people who don't know, number 7 is the on Rising Star shows up on the first page, so you get a lot of extra views.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm happy with 2000. I think my highest for my second version of Dear Spellbook, I think I hit 1500 when I left Rising Stars.
Mm-hmm.
So 2000 is it's a good
Yeah,
number.
I think 2,000 is like a very good number. I mean, like Torchbearer was at 1,000 when I dropped off of number 8, right? So I would be perfectly cool with that. 2,000 is a very good number, and also follower count on Royal Road translates to two things: feedback and vanity. It's maybe a good indicator of, hey, this is a good story and people may like it. But I think as you probably found out yourself, publishing on KU is a whole different beast. There's a completely different audience, right? So here's
Yeah.
hoping. So actually, I also got the same complaints as you did, basically. People saying, "Oh, this is confusing. What's going on here? I have no idea what's happening in the book." But that's by design. You're supposed to actually be interested enough to go through and know or want to know what happened or what all these words mean or who this character is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean it's not Malazan. I've tried to read that a couple times. I can't get into it. You just get dropped. You're not even dropped in the deep end. You're like the ocean is like poured on top of you in that story. And whenever you're trying to like get your bearings, like, oh hey, here's a new character we're gonna talk about. It's not that much, but it is a pretty complicated magic system. I have some epitaphs at the beginning of every
Mm,
chapter. I think what I, in hindsight already, I should have probably organized those a little differently
mm,
to kind of lend some light into like the story
mm.
in relevant times. But I don't know if I'll change that while it's on Royal Road.
I mean, could always do another rewrite. I mean, right? So, I mean, if you're doing an edit at that magnitude already, why not just republish? Like, I personally think everyone gets like one free, like, second shot. I don't like it if people are doing it more than once. There were some authors who just did like small changes and didn't really improve the story all that much, and then tried to like get into like in higher position at Rising Stars. They like hit top one or top two, and they're like, no, I didn't like the rating, so I'll try it again. Like that was a bit weird for me. I mean, they're
Yeah,
free to do it; it's not against the rules. But I personally think that like doing it once is like hitting top three should be you're good. You don't need to do this again.
yeah. I'm not gonna repost. I'm happy enough with how it did.
Mhm.
And I know like I mean once you hit Royal or not Royal Road, once you fall off Rising Star, it's like there's still growth
Yeah.
and I try to think of Royal Road as just kind of something I'm doing to like help me get to publishing.
Mhm.
Because you do get valuable feedback. And I mean, you kind of if your plan is to publish on Kindle at some point, and you do have a Patreon, you're kind of getting paid for work that you were kind of going to do anyway. Like there
Yeah.
is work involved in managing the Patreon and like scheduling chapters and
Yeah.
updating all the tiers and all that.
Mm,
But at a certain point, you're going to write the book and show it to people and get feedback and then integrate that into your writing. And
mm.
kind of Royal Road is a great place to do that. And then some people want to read more, and you can give them more chapters for Patreon and keep it
I, I
keep it going.
I kind of wonder if that's a job that people could do. You know, professional Patreon admin and or Royal Road chapter poster, because sometimes it gets like Royal Road chapter posting is okay, but doing it on Patreon is like shooting yourself in the foot with a blunderbuss.
Yeah, Patreon's awful. I
Yeah.
don't know any. I don't think I've ever had a talk conversation with another writer who didn't think it was very annoying. Like right now, if I have italics in the chapter, I have to just like read through and find them and re-italic
Oh
them in
god.
italicize in
Okay,
Patreon.
here's a trick that I do. I uploaded everything into G Drive
Uh huh.
with the formatting and everything, and then I create a like shareable link and then link that in my Patreon.
I used to do that actually. I used to do for Dear Spellbook originally. I used to write it in Google Docs. I would
Mm,
copy the chapter into a chapter,
mm,
and then I would save that into a PDF and save that as an EPUB, and then I put all
mm,
three of those there.
mm,
Then I did a poll one day and asked how everyone was reading the story, and
mm.
most people were just reading it from the email that they get from Patreon when the chapter goes out. So I was like,
Wow.
all right, I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore.
What?
But yeah, that might be that would probably be less work.
I also think so. I mean, okay, so I can't do that. I can't put Torchbearer on Patreon as it is because there's way too much formatting.
Yeah, you have tables and things like
I
that,
have
right?
tables. I have like weird code boxes that like are neon green.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's also the reason why I'm not Scribble Hub or Wattpad.
yeah. I feel bad for Patreon readers because like it's just not a good reading experience, and like I
Mhm.
wish I could make it better, but I and people like the largest proportion just read it through Patreon, even though it's
Mm.
not a good reading app.
Uh, I really hope that like the rumors are true and Kana and Wing are going to put like advanced chapters for purchase on Railroad anytime soon. That could be really cool.
Well, they're if you've noticed, they're they're like LLC or whatever. When you make a Patreon or payment through like PayPal is soon or like coming soon media or something like that because they've always been it's always coming soon.
Maybe it's like fusion energy. It's always going to happen in the next 20 years.
Yeah. I think I mean I'm in Discord channels a lot kind of talks about it. I think the problems are like financial legality things that are like slowing it down. Which sounds super fun.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see, we're going to hope. Well, it's a new ad. If you are interested in having your story shouted out on this podcast, please reach out to me under critrpg.podcast@gmail.com. For now, I just finished the first book in my own series, Torchbearer. If you like a slow burn story about weak to OP main characters, mixing magic and technology, and numbers going up, you might also enjoy this one. You can find the link to my link tree down below. And that's all for now. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and let's get on with the show. So, we'll see, right?
Yeah. I want someone, though, to all your listeners, to make a web plugin that'll just manage all this, because I'd pay for that. I don't know how much I'd pay an individual to manage all that, but I'm sure I'd spend like $20 a month or something on a program that'll just manage all my Patreon and Royal Road chapters and export it from Scrivener and keep the formatting and things like that. That would be... I'd pay for that.
I'll talk to some friends, see what I can do.
Yeah.
But I think like
to that.
I think Patreon has no API.
Yeah.
So there's no way you can interact with Patreon. Patreon just either you put it on here or you don't. Don't care. Maybe what you can do is like you can do it with the Google Docs link, but I doubt it. Anyway, next question. The second question, because you kind of like took away the third a little bit already.
Sorry, ruining
no, that's fine.
Carefully
that's fine.
crafted order.
My podcasting experience. Now, what's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer?
Probably two things. One, I don't do, but it is good advice, and I wish I could do it. Is like write every day, even if it's like a little bit, because whenever I get off of breaks of writing, it's hard to get back into it. And the reason I don't write every day is because like I write maybe like an hour a day max, and if I'm editing, like I'm editing for that hour. If I'm in a phase where I'm not editing, I can write for it like an hour.
How long are your chapters, and how many chapters per day do you do? Per week do you do?
My writing pace is like I can write like 1,000 words an hour, maybe 1,500 an hour if I'm like really kind of haven't written in a while and it's all built up. But then I'll edit for like a month and write nothing. So it's hard for me to say my pace. For Primal Wizardry, I think that I can. Well, I know I can do 2 chapters a week of like 1,500 to 2,500 words. So I think I can comfortably do like 5,000 words a week and get it on Royal Road with editing and uploading and all that. I'm hoping that my backlog keeps getting longer so I can go up to 3 times a week, because I know 2's not. I mean, some people wrote like 2 chapters a day. I can't do that, but yeah, I'm hoping to do more than 2 a week.
Please remember that you can always go to your 2,000 followers and cry about it.
Yes.
And I don't mean to be like mean about it, but we have to remember like many people on Royal Road never get past 200.
Yeah. I have been posting daily for the last 3 weeks though. So because I've been writing this story since like March maybe, and I had 120,000 words built up, saved up for the Rising Stars run. I'm going to have to go back down to twice a week. I was going to do that today, but I think I'll probably give it till tomorrow and do one more chapter, because I forgot to warn people that I was going back to it. So that's on me. I'll give them the next chapter.
I mean, at the end, like doing this sustainably is probably one thing that most authors who've been at this for like a longer time wish they had done in the beginning. So yeah, go you. That's good.
Yeah.
So your one piece of advice would be to write daily. And what's the other one?
The other one, this one I do think I do well. It's like, if your readers say there's a problem, they're right that there's a problem, but they're probably not right about how to fix it.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure everyone's been in a conversation where people are saying how easy it would have been to fix the latest Star Wars movies or something, but like they clearly shows that there were problems with the movie. But everyone's specific opinions about what the problem was are probably not like the right fix. So usually I'll try to engage with readers in my comments if they have like a problem, and usually it's because what I meant to say didn't get
Yeah.
conveyed well, and like in my head it made sense. The words I put down on paper didn't make sense, so I'll
Mhm.
try to like talk to them, figure out what the problem is, and fix it.
Yeah. That's very
Sometimes
true.
though, there's readers who just don't like what you did, and that's okay. As long as what I meant to get down there was there, and they didn't like it, that's fine. Not everyone's gonna like all your all your decisions.
I completely agree. In the first version of Torchbearer, someone was like really mean about it, and I was like, "So what can I do to make it better?" And we just got to talking, which was exhausting at some point, but also pretty cool because they just said like, "Hey, I'm just really confused. I don't know what's going on." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what's it supposed to be. That's the thing I want to happen anyway." But he said, "But I don't care enough for me to want to find out," and that was a good point, right? Because the problem wasn't that he's confused. The problem was that the main character wasn't relatable or nice enough for people to stick with the book. So I fixed that in the second draft, and I'm going to make it even better in the third. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. And
Feedback.
then yeah, one time though, I remember getting in a. I have a rule. I don't argue with people on the internet. Like, and just
Mhm.
it's not healthy. Like, I'll like fixate on it, and
I think
like
you're wrong.
that's okay if you feel that way. But there's a hard line to like. There's a hard line between like talking to someone about, or a fine line between like talking to someone about the story and like arguing. Like I try not to argue about it. Like I try to like listen to their feedback and then implement it. But there was one time where like someone was just like convinced that like I had a character who like murdered a bunch of people and then found out later on that like hey they were actually people, and someone was just like not on board with that being murder. Like he didn't know, it was fine, and I was like, all right, I need to step back from this because I don't think we're on the same page here.
I do this every week.
Yeah, I didn't know those were people, so it's fine, right?
I thought those were bowling pins, officer.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So your first advice would be to write every day, which you try to do, or may do and may not do. By the way, 20 words is enough. I try to do 20 words, and then sometimes it's like 300, and I'm like, could have done more maybe. But if your goal is just 20, it's way easier to actually get started. And then sometimes it's like 4,000, 5,000. So whatever you do. And
Yeah.
the other one is to take feedback, but take it in consideration.
Yeah, I just don't discount readers' opinions because if,
Mhm.
if it's not working for them, something's not working. So like
Mhm.
take a step back and don't be like they don't understand. Like
Yeah.
give them the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to understand.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the third question that you already kind of answered, but I still want to answer, like have you answer again. So if there's one thing you could do that you could go back to and change, what would that be?
I would not write three different timelines in a
Mhm.
story that has time loops in it because that's confusing and people don't
Okay.
like that. Also, maybe I would write a lit RPG because those are more popular. Um, but
Yeah,
that
I really want to talk to you about that in the bonus material about traditional fantasy and lit RPG and popular and not popular, but that's definitely bonus material stuff. Or I should say, second half of the podcast stuff, if that doesn't
yes,
offend you, the listener. If it does offend you, then yes, it's bonus material. It's just purely bonus. Yes.
bonus.
Um, but yeah, so anything else that you would go back to and change?
I don't know. I it's hard to say because a lot of the things that I did do that I regret ended up having positive outcomes. Like I did
Mhm.
post on Royal Road too soon. I know that. But if I hadn't posted on Royal Road and I hadn't like got connected with like authors on Discord and like gotten like positive feedback, I probably would have stopped doing this before
Mhm.
anything got published. So while like I probably should have held on to the book a little bit longer and done like a reread before I posted it, I happy with how things turned out. So I can't
Yeah,
really say that that was a mistake.
I think so too. I mean, I started writing Torchbearer like 4 years ago, just because. And I picked it up and actually stuck with it because not because I wanted to like get big in Japan, but because I really wanted to just keep at it, just put something out every day, right?
Mhm.
And it's probably one of the most formative experiences of my life because I learned how to be okay with setting my own goals instead of following some like guide online that says like, oh, if you don't have 3,000 followers, your book is a failure. I know that the person who wrote that meant it as a like good point, because if you really want to earn money with this, you should probably, look at your follower count. By the way, this is different today than it is back then. But by not doing that, I found that I formed really good habits of writing, which is write every day, just push stuff out, don't overthink it,
Mhm.
which is a merit of its own.
Overthinking it is actually my particular writing style.
Mm-hmm. Is that really so? Do you really think
Uh,
so?
I don't know. When I'm in a writing mode, right now I'm in an editing mode trying to get my
Mm,
backlog edited for Railroad. But when I'm
mm.
in a writing mode, basically I'm kind of like thinking about my story all day.
Oh, okay.
And then if I don't actually sit down and write, like my brain gets kind of full and
Mm.
like I'm trying to get more ideas in there, but I can't remember them all. So like I have
Oh,
to
yeah.
like just kind of dump it out so I can clear the cache and
Yeah,
keep
I
going.
start to ignore people around me, and I just like I have to write this down, otherwise it's coming out of my nose. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty cool though. All right, fourth one.
fourth one.
We're rushing through these. This is nice. What's one book that you love, and why is it awesome?
I'm gonna say two, but they're similar. First one is a series, I
I
guess.
always ask one
Yeah.
book and be like, I have 4 1 books. I'm like, okay.
Okay. I have technically it's seven, but it's really two series, and they're very similar. Have you read Red Rising?
It's up there somewhere.
Okay. Yeah.
It sounded so brutal when I read the prompt and I wasn't in the mind space.
I just finished Lightbringer like last week on my
Mm-hmm.
on my work trip. I was
Mm-hmm.
like in this factory in Taiwan, like trying to get people to like leave me alone for a little bit so I could like finish the audiobook. But yeah, so I just finished Lightbringer, which is the sixth book in the series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like Ender's Game
Mm-hmm.
and Hunger Games in the
Mm-hmm.
future in fantasy realm. And it's about this like society in the future where humans have been like genetically engineered in like different
Red
castes.
Rising or
Red Rising.
Red Rising is fantasy?
No, it's science fiction, but like the people in charge have basically structured society so that like martial combat is like the basis of like space combat.
That sounds like a very good idea. We should do that.
Yes, it's very good. So like this guy gets genetically engineered to be like he's a red, which is like this
Mm-hmm.
minor like subcaste, and he gets
Mm-hmm.
genetically engineered to be like a gold, which are like the rulers, and he gets put into this not a magic school, he puts into this school for the elite children of like the golds, and as like a plant, so he can rise up through their military ranks. And the
Mm-hmm.
school is kind of like it's very like ancient Roman, where
Mm-hmm.
they drop them with nothing and they have to like scrounge with like stone tools. And as they progress, they get more and more advanced weapons. But like the
Mm-hmm.
teachers that are proctoring this basically battle royale school
Mm-hmm.
like fly around on like grav boots and like pretend to be like the gods. And each one's like a
Mm-hmm.
different Roman god, like Hermes or
Hermes,
Ares
yeah.
or yeah.
Hermes is Greek.
Is
No, wait.
Hermes Greek?
Yeah, Hermes is Greek. I think it's Pluto. No,
Pluto. Mercury is the Roman name. Yes.
Mercury.
So yeah, so it's very good. It's got a main character that you can really like root for, and all the main side characters you get really attached to. And when
Mm-hmm.
they die or betray the main character, it hurts. And there's just a lot of really good speeches. And Tim Gerald Reynolds narrates it, who's one of my favorite narrators, and he's just like does these very stirring speeches really well. So Red
This is
Rising,
it's one of the books I couldn't read
couldn't read it.
because I'm just too emotional for this stuff. Like if
Right.
there's stuff that's like betrayal, I mean I cried during like the top 10 anime betrayal meme things on YouTube. So
I don't really often get emotionally attached to characters in books I'm reading, but yeah, this is a series I definitely do.
but that's worse. You see how that makes it worse, right?
Well, I mean, if you're dead inside and nothing make, no, it's I don't know. I really like usually when characters die in books, like I'm like kind of over it. Like it doesn't really affect me, but like
Yeah.
a couple times there were some deaths, and I was like, oh man, that's rough.
Upsetting.
But my other one is related to this.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. It's Will of the Many, and tell me if this sounds familiar, but it's about a fantasy Roman society where this person from outside of the Roman society of the elite is put into a school for their children, and
Mm-hmm.
as a plant, and he's investigating something. And I really like that one because it's by James Islington. Islington, I don't know. He wrote like Canius
Yeah.
trilogy. Have you heard of that? It's a fantasy series with time travel in it, which I'm a fan of. And in Will the Many, it doesn't really seem like there's like weird stuff going on, like from a high level, but it's kind of going on in the background. And then in like the last like couple chapters, like you realize like the curtains pull back, and you're like, oh, that's why everything was weird. And it's very very good, and I'm looking forward to the sequel.
I think this is a good point to point to Portal to Nova Roma. I haven't read it yet, but it's supposed to be good.
I haven't read that either. I talked to J.R. Matthews a lot. That's him, yes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's him. Yeah.
Jake's Magical Market, yeah. Talked to him a lot on Discord. I've been meaning to read his because I love tech uplift. That's one of my favorite genres, which I have a couple ideas for, which I don't know if I'll get to, but like Bobiverse. If you want more recommendations, Bobiverse is great.
Torchbearer.
Is Torchbearer out?
Torchbearer is tech uplift goes very, very wrong. That's the premise.
Okay. Have to check that out because I have a soft spot for tech uplift. There's the first one I ever read is this book is not objectively good, but I really like it. It's called Cross Time Engineer, and it's about this engineer who gets sent back to 13th century Poland, and like he basically starts the Industrial Revolution. The engineering in that book is just like great, but also he has like a harem of like 16-year-old girls, which is not great, and it's like half the book's really good, and the other half, like it's not half, it's like maybe like a fifth or something. You're like, I'm not gonna read this part.
It's a sixth.
It's sixth.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not recommending it, but it is. If you want to read a good engineering book, just read 5-6 of that book.
5-6 of that. This is skip the icky parts. Yeah. I got what you mean. Have you read Virtuous Sons?
I have not.
That's a Greco-Roman cultivation.
Yes, I was on a Roman kick after Red Rising, Will of the Many. I also read Codex Alara, which is another Roman fantasy book. And I was going to read Virtuous Sons next, but I had been rereading so many things, like because I reread Red Rising. I was like, my new release backlog was going out, so I had to catch up on some
I mean,
other things.
They are all heavy on the romance.
Roman. Oh.
Got you.
This is a little spoiler for Primal Wizardry, but I do have a fantasy Roman Empire planned to be in it at some point, which is partially why I was reading all this fantasy Roman stuff. It's like chicken or egg. Like I like it, so I was reading it, but also I kind of had this idea for it, and then I kept reading it more. But stay tuned. Cool. I haven't written that part yet, but it'll exist someday.
Right. I think we're at the part where we do shoutouts. Shoutouts.
I don't really read anything on Royal Road anymore because it's not narrated, and I don't have time to read with my eyes. So I will just shout out another Portal author who just started his serial. Because you guys, I was listening to like the backlog. You guys mentioned Portal like every episode.
Yeah, just like I said, I just really like Brooke as a person. What can I say?
And the bribes helped, right?
No, they really didn't help. They made me very, very
too
jaded.
Much character. Yeah. So Glyax, Jonathan Schmidt, he wrote The Infinite Tower, which he's serializing now, which just started coming out like 2 or 3 days ago. So I don't know if he's on Rising Stars yet. Let's see. But I'm going to recommend him because he's a nice guy who I met at Dragon Con. He's not on Rising Stars yet. And he was talking to me about it a lot. And I'm blanking on the details now. But if you want to read your Tower Climb. And he did say he was trying to make a serial for serial's sake. So it's
Mhm.
if you don't want to read a story that's going to get yanked off a Royal Road in like a week, I think this one's a safe bet.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, I did my shout outs, to everyone. No, but oh, right. Yeah, one more. My friend Sean, or Dad's Bedtime Stories on Royal Road, wrote a book with his daughter.
Oh, I shouted
And
that story out on
hmm,
my. Did a shout
you
out for
shouted that
that
story
on
out,
my.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's called The Girl Who Killed a God. Um,
yeah. She's on Rising Stars.
yeah,
She was like
she was
8 or
at
9.
she was at 9 or something, right? But she may have fallen off again. But it's a really high, it's a really cool story. It has violence. It has,
Violence.
well, strong female protagonist, obviously. And if you know old folks, if you know That's Bedtime Stories, then you know what you're in for. Lots of gratuitous violence, uh, very immature jokes, and a lot of content very, very quickly. So, yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I just checked. It's
Oh,
number 12 on Rising Stars. Girl
ooh,
Who
then
Killed
she's
a
getting
God.
there. I think, yeah, he's on vacation right now or on a scouting trip. And when he comes back, it could be cool because doesn't have internet over there. So it could be cool to come back to like top 10 Rising Stars entry.
She was
Okay.
at number 9 before, I think. But a couple
Mm,
stories just jumped up
mm.
recently. I've been
Yeah,
watching that page too frequently.
yeah.
I
So this one's for free. I usually put the stuff like in the second part of the podcast, but I personally don't think it's super healthy to, well, not obsess, but think too much about rating on Railroad. It doesn't really do anything. All it does is it gratifies your ego, and your ego loves that shit.
yeah
But it doesn't make you a better writer. It doesn't give you any money, and if it goes wrong, like it can ruin your writing mood for days, weeks, months, even. I mean, if you're looking at He Who Shall Not Be Named, you get like a lot of you write a mediocre book because you slip up, and it's not like it happens, right? And then suddenly you've been kicked off of the throne of lit RPG, and you're not writing for 5 years now. So yeah, don't look at these ratings; they're not for you. Look at the feedback.
yeah yeah. And I don't know. My first time on Royal Road Rising, or my first story, Dear Spellbook, like when that
Mm,
was on Royal Road, I don't know. After a while, the ratings and the bad reviews, like I know some people can't read the reviews, like it like
mm,
makes them feel
mm,
I don't know bad. I'll read all my reviews on like Amazon and like
mm,
Goodreads or Royal Road. Like
mm,
for the most part, when people post negative reviews, if I can see where they're coming from, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Yep, I
mm,
totally do that. Yep, I get
mm,
that. The ones that bug me are the ones that are, but they don't bug me that much. It's like I only read 3 pages. It probably could be good, but I don't know, 2 stars. It's like those bug me a little bit. Like give it a shot. But for the most part, I don't. I don't know. Bad reviews don't really make me feel that bad because
mm.
not every book's for everyone. Like
Yeah.
I tell my sisters and like my
Mm,
family like they haven't read my book because they don't read fantasy books. And not
mm.
only do they not read fantasy books, they don't read like the niche subgenre of progression fantasy.
Yeah.
Like if I tell someone I read a fantasy book and they're like, "Oh, like Harry Potter," and like that's the only book they know of, they probably don't like. They're probably not going to appreciate it, and that's
Well,
fine.
it has a magical school.
Yeah, Primal Wizardry does have a magical school, so it is kind of like if all of the school was a room of requirement. That's kind of what Primal Wizardry is about.
Mm.
Um,
If,
but
mm?
bad example, I guess. But for Dear
Oh,
Spellbook, I don't really recommend
I mean, now you have
non-fantasy
two,
readers to read it.
and they're like Lord of the Rings, like yeah, but in a time loop, and then you have Dear Spellbook, right? So now you can win
Yeah,
because those are the two that people know.
yeah. The way I describe Dear Spellbook is I just say it's like Groundhog Day in like a fantasy setting.
That's a very good.
Um,
Yeah.
which is fun fact. The movie Groundhog Day was filmed like 20 minutes from my house.
What?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Um,
So you actually still do Groundhog Day where you live.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Oh no, it's not the far. It's not filmed over there. Not filmed
They
in the
don't
real city,
film.
right?
They still do it in that square though.
Mhm.
There's like the puddle that Bill Murray steps in is like
Yeah.
bronzed in, and like it's still there. They left the hole, but it's like covered in bronze.
Nice.
Um, it's
Pretty
kind of neat.
cool.
It's like the only exciting thing to happen in this area of the world. Actually, Bill Murray came back for like a Super Bowl commercial like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember, and he like filmed on like a farm nearby. It's a big deal.
Oh my god. Yeah, I come from a small city too. I know what you're talking about. In that case, that will be it for us today. So thank you so much for watching and or listening. And please do leave a follow or like or subscribe or whatever button you can click on whatever platform you're on, because it really helps me out. I am so close to reaching 1,000 followers, and that would really help me out a lot financially too. So I would appreciate it if you could help me out with that. Anyway, if you also want to continue listening to Peter and I talk, feel free to head to the Patreon page, where you can get, well, I think it's at least 4 more hours of podcast every month for the low price of $5, which is pretty nice, I think, personally. All right. Peter, any last words?
I just bought a new car, so buy my books.
Yes, buy Peter's books, please. Well, if that's been it, then thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.